Welcome back to Alchemy Online, your skate class in your home. Today, we're going to be taking a look at how skateboards are made. So, we're going to be starting from our raw materials, and we're going to walk you through how we turn stacks of maple veneers into beautiful skateboards for you to ride. The first step on our journey to building a skateboard involves our materials. The majority of skateboards on the market today are all made with hard rock maple, usually of a Canadian variety. However, there are companies out there using more advanced materials, composite materials, carbon fibers, but the bulk of skateboards on the market today are tried and true wooden manufactured skateboards. Most of our skateboards, again, are 7 plies of Canadian maple. Each single ply is also referred to as a veneer. One of the most important parts in pressing a skateboard is making sure that you have a variety of grains. So if you were to use all vertical grains in your skateboard, you would have a relatively flimsy and or breakable skateboard. So the way companies have got around this is a mixture of vertical and horizontal grain wood. You can see this guy has a little more bend this way in it, where our vertical lambs like to bend vertically. So 7 plies consist of a face ply, which is pre-sanded to have a nice finish. We do another vertical ply under it. We have our first horizontal or cross ply, another vertical ply in the middle, one more cross ply, and then another vertical, and our bottom sheet, which again, sanded to have a nice finish. So 7 plies of wood, and how we go from this stack into this lovely thing involves a press. All right, guys, welcome to Alchemy's Dungeon of Production. We have right here to my right our lovely skateboard press, compliments of Frank Porcelli. He's let us use this thing while he's not using it, and we're incredibly grateful. It's a relatively simple DIY press. We've got 2 20-ton hydraulic jacks down here. We've got the bottom of our mold, we've got the top of our mold, and we've got a big steel press to hold it all together. So once we get our laminates glued up, we're going to slide that skateboard right into here. We're going to push these jacks up, keeping good pressure on that board. And just to be safe, we're going to let it sit in there for 24 hours. We want to make sure that we get no warping, no D-lams, nothing but the best for you to skate. So next up, we're going to start gluing up some laminates for you guys. We've got our 7 plies of maple. Time to glue them all up. I have already put them in order and got the grains facing all the right way. So now all there is to it is to glue it. We got our Tight Bond 2. And I'm not going to lie, there's better ways to do this, but I prefer the caveman approach to board making. Just drizzle a nice, generous amount of glue on there, and we get to rolling. Again, the main thing is we want to make sure there's glue all the way across this thing, all the way out to the edges, to make sure that we don't get any sort of air pockets, bubbles, and again, I want to make sure I don't leave any puddles anywhere on this board, because those are going to create weak points where the board becomes more brittle and more likely to crack. We're going to get our stack nice and tidy as much as we can. We're going to gently feed this thing into our press in, making sure that we're going all the way to the nose, all the way to the tail, and then we're just going to get it as close to center as we can. All right, we're going to start getting some pressure in. All right, so the board's in the press. We've maxed out both of our hydraulic jacks. Not going anywhere. We're gonna let this guy sit overnight. Tomorrow, we're gonna drop the mold, mark the registration lines, and see what we get. So you've just pressed your first skateboard and you have something that looks like this. What do you do next? We come up with our shape. One of the most important things about coming up with the shape of our skateboard is getting a center line on our board. That's right, you guessed it. The center line is a line that runs down the center of our board, and it indicates where the true center of all of our concave lives. If you don't have a good center line on your board, chances are your shape's going to be asymmetrical and or your trucks are not going to be set right. Still probably rideable, but if we're going to do something, let's try to do it the right way. You can see here I've mocked up a shape using my center line, and the way I like to do my shapes is I use paper templates. I fold them in half, I cut my shape, and then when I open that paper, I have a symmetrical left and right side of my skateboard. It's a relatively cost-effective and easy way to start creating shapes for your board. Once we have our general shape laid out, the last thing we need to figure out is where we're going to mount our trucks, and we're going to decide what kind of wheelbase we want on our skateboard. A longer wheelbase is going to provide more stability at higher speeds, but a shorter wheelbase is going to give you a little more maneuverability. Every skater I've ever met has a preference on what their favorite wheelbase is. No one's right, no one's wrong, it's personal preference. I myself have become accustomed to riding a 15.5-inch wheelbase, which is what I have measured out here, and I've measured out my wheelbase from the center of my board, making sure that my bolt holes are not infringing on my tail or on my nose. When you get really into the nitty-gritty of board shapes, all kinds of riders around the world have preferences on how much space is behind their back truck before their tail starts, the degree of their tail, how long the tail or nose of the board is, and again, it's all personal preference. There's no right or wrong when it comes to your board shape, unless you're riding something you don't like. So, we're going to go ahead now and talk a little bit about how we get graphics on our skateboards. Once your board has been cut out and shaped, sanded, ready to go, you might want to have a graphic on it. The majority of produced boards today have graphics applied through what is called a heat transfer. Essentially, the graphic is screen printed onto a very specific plastic sheet that is then fed onto a heated roller, which adheres all of the ink onto the board. You peel the excess plastic off, and boom, you've got a skateboard graphic. This is by far the most standard, cost-effective way that companies put graphics on their boards. However, here at Alchemy, we like to do things a little bit different. We use water-based ink and we use traditional screen printing to put graphics on our skateboards. So we're going to take a look now at our small screen print setup and how we put our graphics on our boards. Welcome to the other half of Alchemy's production dungeon. We've got our screen rig set up right here, and we're going to take a quick look at how we put the graphics on our boards here at Alchemy. So, step number one, we're going to want to figure out what screen we are printing. And for right now, we're going to go with our newest graphic, inspired by the legends and tales of Alchemy. This is our brand new graphic. It's going to be a two-tone with a little glow in the dark, just because. So, we're going to start by loading our screen onto our print rig. And one of the most important parts, much like pressing a board, is registration. We want to make sure our image is centered so that when we print things, we know where to expect the print. All right, so our screen's on there. Once our screen's on there, we want to figure out where we're printing on the board. You can see I've got some tape registration lines right here. That is so I can take my pre-sanded face plies, set them up in my rig, right in between the lines, drop my screen, and then we'd be ready to print. We're not going to print this one today, but we wanted to get you a look at what a screen print system looks like and how we put our graphics on. So we can put graphics on our flat veneer before it goes into the press, giving us items like this. Then from here, we add our glow effects to the dome and the heart. We clear coat it to protect it while it's in the press. Sandwich it up like we did the other boards. I don't know if I have the one with the graphic in here. Ah, I do. So once we've sandwiched our graphic veneer with our other plies in our board press, we get a nice pressed board with our graphic ready to roll. So all that's left now is to use our registration marks to find our center line, come up with our shape, cut it out, sand it, seal it, and skate it. That's all there is to it.